Hey guys, it's Maddie. Today we are back with another episode of our new 100 Years of Trucking series. This time, we are taking you guys on a trip back through time in our very own truck time machine, starting all the way back in 1970. Let's get started. As what many considered a sequel to the shifting societal trends of the 1960s, the 70s were marked by more movements and, most importantly, more manufacturing. Many makes and models were manufactured during this decade as the trucking industry continued to thrive. First and foremost, Ford kicked off 1970 with the launch of their beloved L-Series Louisville truck line. In addition, International introduced their medium-duty, forward-control, cab-over-engine Cargo Star model. Both conventional and cab-over engines truly took control of the roads during this era, as trucks quickly became the stars of the show, literally. Trucking was trending, and many trucker movies made their way into the mainstream media during this time. In fact, 1971 gave way to the golden age of trucking movies when Duel debuted as the first full-length film directed by Steven Spielberg and depicted a driver daunted by a demonic big rig. Following this featured flick, further freight hauling films were released throughout the duration of the decade, including Highballin', Convoy, Smokey and the Bandit, White Line Fever, Every Which Way But Loose, Flatbed Annie and Sweetie Pie Lady Truckers, and even more. The cutting-edge CB radio culture continued to grow and cultivate a closer-knit community surrounding the trucking industry. This newfound respect for the industry and its over-the-road outlaws pushed more people into trucking and further propelled production. Speaking of which, later in 1971, Diamond Rio Trucks released their C-116 Apollo model. Also in 71, International introduced their Transtar 4200 and 4300 conventional cabs. Continuing to reach for the stars in the next year of 1972, International would present their powerful new Paystar 5000 truck. This same year, Peterbilt and Kenworth's parent company, Pacific Car and Foundry, would formally change their name to PACCAR Inc. Later in November of that same year, Nixon would be re-elected as our nation's president. Despite his re-election, 1972 would introduce the beginning of the end of Nixon's presidency. Political pandemonium broke out as the discovery of the Nixon administration's involvement in the most major federal scandal ever, the Watergate scandal. Stemming from the June 17th break-in of the Democratic National Committee headquarters, the Watergate scandal was sparked by a series of subsequent events exposing Nixon's conspiracies and cover-ups in regards to the activities that took place in and around the crime. These events led to the eventual erosion and overall demise of Nixon's political support system, thus requiring him to be the first and only president to resign and remove himself from office. Regardless of the civic chaos occurring around the industry, 1973 would prove to be a powerhouse production year for Freightliner, as their Powerliner hit the scene. Also in 1973, Dodge debuted their beloved Bighorn long-nose 950 conventional model. Despite doing exceptionally well in sales, unfortunately, very limited numbers of these long hoods were launched, with only 261 of these beautiful Bighorn trucks built in total. This dramatic decrease in production was partially due to the 1973 Arab oil embargo that would slash our nation's oil supply and shoot gas prices up through the ceiling, which would ultimately lead to Dodge's demise only 2 years later. As a result of these raised prices and restrictions, the U.S. went into a recession, which in turn caused the lowering of the national speed limit to 55 miles per hour and the implementation of daylight savings time. The next year of 1974 took even more unexpected twists and turns as newly appointed President Gerald Ford took over in office and proclaimed the pardoning of his predecessor for any crimes he may have committed against the United States as president. Moving back into the manufacturing realm, Mack also made a major move this same year when they began manufacturing their massive cruise liner cabover. Built with a better interior, this cruise liner cabover came customized with more chrome and served as a fancier version of the company's F model. In addition to the cool new cruise liner cabover engine model, White Freightliner debuted their first ever conventional cab, WFC, in 1974 as well, which would later go on to be known as the Freightliner FLC 120 after White and Freightliner split. Speaking of splits, 1975 marked the midway point of the decade and also the official end of the war with Vietnam. The tables of time were turning, and more advanced technology was taking the world by storm. Microsoft was created that same year by Bill Gates, followed by the foundation of Apple the following year. These technological turning points were also transferred to the trucking industry too, with Peterbilt, for instance, updating their 352 pacemaker model to the safer, more spacious 352H high cab cabover engine model in 1975, and Kenworth debuting their all-new aerodynamically advanced Aerodyne sleeper in 1976. Also in 76, Ford's famous LTL 9000 launched, with a longer hood and larger powertrains, and was one of the first to feature Ford's blue oval emblem. Speaking of Ford, the U.S. bid farewell to President Ford as we welcomed newly elected President Jimmy Carter into office in 1976. As Americans celebrated the conception of our country during this bicentennial year, trucking paid their tribute with the debut of dozens of deluxe edition bicentennial models. Moving on, even more massive models were made, with Mack's Superliner making its debut the next year in 1977. This year brought rigs that were bigger and badder than ever before. In fact, GMC would also launch their largest conventional cab in 77 with their gigantic new General model. These giant Generals would later go on to be the last heavy-duty GMC truck in production. GMC's golden age wasn't over yet though, and the next year in 1978, the company introduced their brand new Brigadier short hood conventional truck. The Brigadier soon became one of the company's most successful models and skyrocketed their sales. Kenworth also blasted off this year as a K100 cabover helped carry the Space Shuttle Enterprise during ground operations in 1978. Just as the 70s decade began to simmer down, things began to boil over in 1979 as the Iran hostage crisis began in early November of that year. The aftermath of this 444-day-long event would develop the second energy crisis in the U.S. and lead to the tripling of oil and gas prices to over $1 a gallon for the first time ever. Things were heating up in the world and the industry as the decade of disco came to its close. Trucking had finally gotten into its groove and gained a greater respect globally as we kept on trucking right on into the next decade of the 1980s. Thank you all so much for watching this decade of our new series, 100 Years of Trucking, Trucking in the 70s. Before you leave, make sure you like the video, check out the other videos on our channel, and subscribe. We are growing rapidly and quickly approaching our next goal of 20K subscribers, so thank you all so much for your support for the show. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, or anything else you'd like to talk to us about, please be sure to tune into our live podcast, The Chrome Corner, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. noon Eastern Standard Time, and join Maddie and Dave as they answer viewers' questions and discuss all things Chrome. If you'd like to stay up to date with the new projects we have coming, please follow us at Jack's Chrome Show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We still have our truck history shirts available on our website at jackschromeshow.com, so please be sure to check them out. If you're in the mood for some Chrome, please drop by our online Chrome shop at jackschromeshop.com and save on your order by using the discount code YouTube. Thanks for watching, we'll see you next week, and remember guys, if your rig don't shine, you don't know Jack.